Well, Ulysses, it's a Wednesday, which means it's time again for another edition of the midweek mailbag episode.
And we're talking trades, we're talking maybe impossible trades, and we're also talking about minor league players that should get their call up.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
And we're the host of the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making Locked On Rays your very first listen every day. And remember, Locked On Rays is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Rays. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Rays. And if you're interested in being a sponsor with the program, lockedonrays@gmail.com for those inquiries. All right, let's get right into the mailbag episode. This question from Rachel from Tampa, Florida. She says, hello, Kevin and Ulysses. We are halfway through the season and the trade deadline is coming up in August. I've been very curious to see which player the Rays will trade during the trade deadline. If you had a player on the Rays to trade, who would it be and why?
Well, thank you, Rachel, for writing to us. This is a tough cookie because you can say which Rays player is doing so well that you could get something back,
right,
of value. But then again, if they're doing something really well, do you really want to give them up in a season where not a lot of people are overperforming their expectations? So given that it's a double-edged sword kind of question, I would approach it as, I think the best deal would be to open up a slot for someone who needs to get their right time of playing time in MLB. And I'm going around the bush by saying Jonathan Aranda needs his shot. He needs to be playing. So how does he get to play? Well, by opening a spot for him. Who could that spot be? You're talking what? First base, second base? So that's tough. That's tough because you don't want to trade Yandy Diaz, even though he basically should have been an all-star. Ji-Man Choi is the guy then left, to trade, which I think he's a fan favorite. So we've talked endlessly about how it's a joke that we always say, hey, Ji-Man Choi is going to go away, and then he doesn't. He's forever a Ray. I think that's the move. I think that's probably the Ji-Man Choi for Jonathan Aranda. That's what I would go. But then again, I don't think Ji-Man Choi would get you much back in return. But it would just be to just get playing time for Jonathan Aranda.
So my issue with that is, are the Rays in a position or a situation where they can trade off a tested veteran player who has a spotty injury history for sure, but is beloved in the clubhouse and does produce at the end of the day, to give another opportunity to yet another rookie? I don't know if the Rays can afford to do that. I like the idea of trying to get more reps for Jonathan Aranda, but I don't think that necessarily has to mean getting rid of or trading away Yandy Diaz or Ji-Man Choi. I'm thinking Yu Chang. I'm thinking Luke Raley, for example.
Okay, well, all right. But in that case, then there's no giveaway then. There's no return. It's just to give playing time for Aranda.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, this question, to me, I didn't read it as, hey, which everyday player are the Rays going to trade? It just says, which player will the Rays trade? And I see Yu Chang on the board. I see Luke Raley on the board. I see possibly Vidal Brujan on the board. I see maybe Isaac Paredes on the board if we're trying to create opportunities for Jonathan Aranda, and a guy who, hit 8 home runs in a span of 2 weeks. Did he just get hot for a certain period of time like Aristides Aquino? Do you sell high on him to provide opportunities for someone else? Or you get creative out there and you do sort of a combo deal like they did a couple years ago, where they attach a prospect to maybe a reliever, to acquire a better reliever, for example, like the Rays did with Jesus Sanchez and Ryan Stanek to acquire Nick Anderson and Trevor Richards. Or you give up like a Vidal Brujan for a Brett Phillips. Like, I think the Rays want to acquire a guy who has MLB experience down this stretch run. And if that means trading a prospect on the 40-man roster, so be it.
That would be, that's something we've talked about, the lack of veteran players in this roster in this year. So I wouldn't oppose to that. Yes, I went a little bit more difficult. I think Yu Chang and Luke Riley are probably the easy picks here for hey, who can get off the board. So I agree with you. Those are probably the ones that are going to go first. But if I wanted to tug at the heartstrings, it would have to be a name that most Rays fans would recognize. And I think Ji-Man Choi would be that name. But to your point, I think it's more easily digestible to see Yu Chang and Luke Riley off the board than Ji-Man Choi.
And I could see a situation where it's like, hey, we're going to give up Luke Bard and Vidal Brujan for a good bullpen arm. Something along those lines. I would not be surprised if that happens. And I know we haven't mentioned Brett Phillips, and the reason I think that we haven't mentioned Brett Phillips is because KK may be out for the season, and the uncertainty of Manny Margot is still out there. So who's going to be your defensive stalwart center fielder? That's a big question. So just by a product of that, Phillips probably has to stay, I would think. And
again, to round it up, I think maybe this is not going to be the sexy take, but I think it's the bureaucratic administrative perspective here. It's going to be the glut of Cal Stevensons. Yeah. The guys that are going to be draft eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Those are the ones that are going to be moved most likely and might not be affected, for Rays fandom alike, the people that people know. That's probably what we're going to be seeing, because again, there was no Rule 5 draft this year, which means that you have a glut of people that are going to be eligible, and you want to at least get something out of them than just lose them outright for $50,000.
And that's a nice segue for our next mailbag question, which we'll get to after we tell you about BlueNile.com. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on right now is the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale. You can save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that will not give away what is inside. So, shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. All right, this next mailbag question from one of our OG listeners, Melissa Herrera. She says, "Hi, gents. Do you think we will see Miles Mastrobuoni get called up soon with all the injuries? He seems to be doing really well in Durham. I assume this, but I am not so stat savvy. Correct me if I'm wrong."
Well, Melissa, thank you for writing to us. And no, you are not wrong. This guy is putting up really good numbers in AAA. In 82 games, for those that don't know, his slash line is 281, a 358 on base, a 428 slugging. That's a 786 OPS, 8 home runs, 35 RBI. So those are the traditional stats. So let's go with the non-traditional stats, the analytics here. 113 WRC plus, so he's 13% above the average AAA player. 10.4 walk rate. That's really, really nice. Good plate discipline. 16.4 strikeout rate. That is fantastic. So he sees almost on par, not quite there, but 10.4 walk rate and 16.4 strikeout rate. That's a really good thing to see from a baseball player. He drives the ball all over the field. From pull side, 36.3%, and opposite side, 35.6%. So he basically sprays the ball, utilizes the whole field. That is a fantastic thing to see. And last but not least, he's played 31 games at second base, 2 games at third, 13 games at short, 18 games in left, 4 games in center field, and 18 games in right field. So he basically is a Rays type of player. You can put him anywhere, and he'll play, and he'll do well. He only has 3 errors this whole season, a couple in second base, and 1 in right field. So those numbers, I don't know if those are all the numbers you were looking at, Melissa, maybe a couple more stats here and there. But yes, he's doing tremendously. Now, The question is, will we see him up? I got to tell you, I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree. First off, he's not on the 40-man roster. So who are you navigating and maneuvering to add him to the 40-man roster? I got to be honest. If we see Miles Mastrobuoni in a Rays uniform this season, something went terribly, terribly wrong with the team in terms of injuries and production elsewhere. We talked about it in the first segment, creating an opportunity for Jonathan Aranda. Jonathan Aranda can't even get reps at the big league level with all the injuries so far. He's the next guy in line, I would think. So no disrespect to Miles Mastrobuoni, who's about to be 27 and was, a mid-round college draftee. I see him as basically roster depth, 4A piece, organizational guy with Miles Mastrobuoni, and he's got an interesting skill set in the sense of he's got some power, he's got some speed, he has defensive versatility. The errors aren't there this year, although if you look at the scouting reports, he's the people that watch him day in and day out basically says that, yeah, he can play a lot of positions, but not necessarily one extremely well. But again, the versatility is there. But and the contact rate, the on-base percentage, that's all really good to see. But I don't like the idea at this juncture this year where the Rays are trying to get into the playoffs and try to go deep into the playoffs, and where they're at this point, that they want to call up another guy or give another opportunity to a guy without any big league reps. And to me, when Miles Mastrobuoni is across the marquee, I see a Yu Chang-like guy in the future where he's going to bounce around from 4 to 5 teams year in, year out, and he'll be a 26-man roster guy. Like he'll get opportunities in the big leagues. I just don't think it'll be with the Rays, and I don't think it will be with the Rays this season.
I think when you talk about the possibility of him getting up, the 40-man is the biggest factor against calling him up.
Yeah,
that's the biggest one.
I mean, with Luke Raley, like if we just want to go and look at AAA numbers, I mean, he was killing it in AAA. He had a 900 plus OPS, and he hasn't, again, not given enough up an opportunity. But we poo Luke Raley, call up Miles Mastrobuoni. What's he going to do?
Yeah, no. Again, the numbers are healthy in AAA, but you want the numbers to be stupid good because you're going to get a hit. You're gonna dent those numbers once you go to the major leagues. I mean, ask that to Josh Lowe, ask that to Vidal Brujan, Taylor Walls. They all did tremendously in AAA, and your numbers will take a hit when you go to the biggest stage. So that's the thing. His numbers are healthy, but they're not jumping out of the page for Miles Mastrobuoni. They're good numbers.
Yeah.
They're healthy, good numbers. So the 40-man, that's I think that the biggest issue. And I don't know. I feel like there's just a couple of names above him, that are not getting their due. Jonathan Aranda. This is basically the Jonathan Aranda propaganda episode.
Yeah,
that's the title of it. He needs to get time, and he's not getting time. He's not getting time. So I think he's just a little bit underneath a couple of rung of the ladders there on the queue to be called up. But yeah, he's doing tremendously in AAA. Well, not tremendous, very well in AAA. I hope he gets his shot. I don't know if it's going to be with the Rays this year.
Question. So if say there's another injury or two, Jonathan Aranda's already gotten called up. It's like, who's the next guy? Is it Vidal Brujan? Or do the Rays try to work out a situation where they call up Miles Mastrobuoni? Or maybe they, going back to the first segment, they trade a Luke Bard and a Vidal Brujan to open up a spot for Miles Mastrobuoni. But I don't know if you're doing all that for Miles Mastrobuoni. But I guess that in a way could create some situation there. But who's next after Jonathan Aranda? Who's next up on the totem pole? I would imagine it'd have to be Vidal.
There's a couple, right? You give the higher pedigree guy the shot again, right? Just like Josh Lowe was given the shot again.
Renee Pinto. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't
think depending
position.
on the positional, what your need is. But I do think you go there with pedigree, and so you would go back to Vidal if Jonathan Aranda is already up. But again, if you have Jonathan Aranda up and you have Vidal Brujan, don't give me bad news about Brendan Lau. It's or
right.
Isaac Paredes. Like, we need those guys. So Yeah, I think you go with pedigree rather than who is scorching it at AAA. Just because you don't want to give up on a guy that's a highly touted prospect so quickly. Again, guys, 140 at bats does not make a player a bust. Vidal Brujan had only 140 at bats. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything at all.
Miles Mastrobuoni could also get the Cal Stevenson treatment at some point too. That is very much on the table as well. It might have to be some sort of prop bet on Bet Online regarding will Miles Mastrobuoni get a MLB at bat this season.
That would be a good one. And you could do that at betonline.net, which is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, which this podcast talks mostly about. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, the final question that we'll get to today from Michael Begg. He says, hey guys, assuming this gets discussed prior to a likely trade, Juan Soto, obviously not coming to the Rays. However, Soto won't be eligible for free agency until 2024. I believe a Rays fan can hope, right? With a short amount of team control time, what would it take for the Rays to get Soto before this year's trade deadline? As always, thanks for the awesome pod. Appreciate you, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Where do we go from here? Okay. There should be a warning on this podcast right now. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you for subscribing. We're so close to 400, guys. Can you get us to 400? Get us to Yandy Diaz's on base percentage.
Get us to Juan Soto's on base percentage. Career on base percentage.
Career on base percentage. There you go.
Which is 427, by the way.
Yeah. So the warning label here is everything that we're going to start talking about in the next 15 seconds is completely fictitious and will never happen. Okay? Yeah. It will never happen. Okay. Here we go. The Rays get Juan Soto. What did they give up? Oh, boy. They gave up the farm, Michael. They gave up everything. They gave up, Stu had to, give up a mansion in Queens or wherever he has it, next to his beloved Mets. You're talking your top hitting prospect, Curtis Mead. You're talking your top pitching prospect, Tosh Bradley. They're gone. Mm-hmm. You're talking a regular MLB provider, which would be Randy Arozarena.
Yep.
And then you're talking a couple more high ceiling guys. Let's say a Cole Wilcox. You're not. And one more. Give me another name.
You throw in Isaac Paredes. They want an everyday regular or a guy who has, he at least has shown that he can have a little bit of staying power at the big league level. Some sort of commodity.
I like that. So a Curtis Mead, Tosh Bradley, Randy Arozarena, Isaac Paredes, and Cole Wilcox, right? Those 5 guys. Michael, you tell that to the Nationals, and you know what happens? They might not hang up. Not hang up. The price for Juan Soto is going to be, you're basically acquiring a future Hall of Famer, and everybody knows it. Yes, right. Injuries can happen, and if injuries happen, then he goes to David Wright, Troy Tulowitzki route, which is a regrettable one, and they were soon to be Hall of Famers, and then injuries stopped them from being so. That could happen.
It's like a left-handed Dominican Mike Trout, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you you're giving up everything, Michael. Do you agree that wouldn't even be enough, Kevin?
Yeah, what they would do, the Nationals, they probably wouldn't hang up, but they would mute you for a second and say, you believe these guys? Are they serious? And then they would return to the phone call.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the other thing is you're competing against a lot of other teams, and the Nationals, they want the biggest trade package in baseball history. That is what they're looking for. And the other issue with this is, and we appreciate the question from Michael Begg and also the disclaimer of, yeah, we know this isn't going to happen. I mean, if and when Juan Soto gets traded, welcome him to LA, welcome him to New York, welcome him to San Diego, something along those lines. But the Nationals also have an issue with contracts, namely Steven Strasburg and Patrick Corbin. So they probably also want to attach one or both of those guys to a Juan Soto deal. And which franchises can absorb that amount of dead money?
Yeah.
In one sense of the word there. So that
it's
is
150, right? Both Patrick Corbin and Steven Strasburg, they're owed
it's at least $200 million.
Yeah.
So, and again, maybe that saves you from having to add another top level prospect, but that's still a lot of money that is going to, it's still a component of a Juan Soto trade. Like it doesn't mean anything at all, but I played around on the baseball trade value site, and this is like just a starter. This is just like, again, so the Nationals don't hang up the phone and curse you. Randy Arozarena, Taj Bradley, Josh Lowe, Curtis Mead, Isaac Paredes. Like, that's a starter. That's like, okay, all right, where are we going from there? All right, I like it, but I kind of like it, but we need, you're going to have to beef it up quite a bit because we got the Angels on the other line. Or like a Randy Arozarena, Taj Bradley, Josh Fleming, Brandon Lau, Curtis Mead. Like, it's gonna, it would have to be a situation where the Rays get Juan Soto, and Rays fans would almost be disappointed that they got Juan Soto because of how much that the Rays had to give up. That's what we're talking about, I think, anyway.
I mean, I don't think anybody would be disappointed to see Juan Soto in a Rays jersey, but I get where you're coming from. I also, very astute point with the Corbin and Strasburg contract numbers, because if I were the Nationals, this is a great way to do it, because honestly, it wouldn't change that much of the prospect haul. It would just take out some of those annoying calls by the small market teams away, because you know that they won't be able to pay Corbin and Strasburg. So now you've minimized your pool, which, I mean, is that smart to do? Minimize your pool for Juan Soto?Maybe not. But if they want to unload those contracts, then you minimize your pool to around 10, 12 teams that could be in the running for Soto, and that would not be the Rays. But let's again, fictional world, the Rays are still in it. Okay, fine. Is it worth it to give up, let's say, 2 major leaguers, 3 top prospects for a year and a half of Juan Soto? It would be fun. Yeah, it would be fun, and jerseys would be sold. But have we not learned anything? Have we not learned anything from the folks in Anaheim? One player does not make you. One player.
2 players don't make you.
3 players in 2 bodies. Okay, because Ohtani's 3 players.
That's true.
So that does not make a baseball team. You know what makes a baseball team? Go look at the 2020 American League pennant winning Tampa Bay Rays. Yeah, that makes a team. A complete, cohesive, men in, men out mentality, platoons, everybody doing what they can in their best position to succeed. That's what makes a team. Juan Soto would be so fun. I would love nothing more than to root for that guy for 2 plus 6 for 8 months of a Rays fandom. I would love that. But I don't think that gets you to where you want to be.
Yeah. In fact, if there was a deal between the Rays and the Nationals, like I'm almost to the point where the Nationals wouldn't trade Juan Soto to the Rays unless Wander Franco was included in the deal. So basically, it's a no.
Yeah.
It's a non-starter, essentially. What do you think about this? Just throwing out a quick off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Curtis Mead, Taj Bradley, Brandon Lau, Drew Rasmussen, Isaac Paredes.
I think that might be the nicest one for the Nationals, but I still think that they would ask for more.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, maybe if they were like, hey, if you also take Patrick Corbin's contract, then yeah, we got a deal.
And maybe, the Rays would not honestly, But honestly, I don't think they're gonna ask for the moon and then attach Corbin or Strasburg I
Yeah.
mean, when you have Juan Soto, I think it's ridiculous the package that you're
Juan Soto, if he keeps up what he's doing, at 31 years old, he could retire and probably still be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
that remarkable. And he's having, quote unquote, a down year right now with 20 homers and a 900 plus OPS. It's really amazing.
Imagine being on track for an 800 OPS plus season and on track to hit 40 home runs, and people saying he's having a bad year. Like, this is what you're trading for. So, fictional warning label done. I hope you enjoy those trade propositions, but then again, not gonna happen.
Where does he wind up? One team. Where do you think he winds up at the end of the day?
Okay, one team. I'm going to go fun. I'm going to go with the Mets. Why in the same division? Because I think that Uncle Steve is going to say, look, we have the money to get him a long-term deal. If you give him to us, there's going to be a sweetener on the side. Don't you worry. We got him locked up.
I could see the Mets. I could also see the Padres. The Padres are not shy about blockbuster trades. The Rays know all about that for sure. It'd be really, really funny. Really, really funny if Juan Soto wound up with the Angels and the Angels still wouldn't make the playoffs with Trout, Ohtani, and Soto. And I could see a situation actually where that would happen too. That's unbelievable. So, nice food for thought there. Again, Juan Soto not coming to the Rays, but it's fun to dream and think about it for sure. Thank you for making the Locked On Rays podcast your very first listen every day. Now make your second listen, the Locked On MLB Prospects podcast. That is also free and available on all platforms. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you tomorrow.